Good afternoon and welcome to today's Digital Dealer webinar. Today's webinar is sponsored by C4 Analytics and is titled, How Much Should I Spend on Paid Search Campaigns? Today's webinar presenter is Rob Stosur, Vice President of Sales at C4 Analytics. The webinar will run approximately 1 hour with a question and answer session at the end. Please welcome Rob.
Thank you, Megan. And of course, thanks to Digital Dealer for hosting today's webinar. Glad to connect with you all here this afternoon. Those who have been to my previous Digital Dealer webinars know that they run fast and they always end early, in part because I know that my voice is very nasally and aggravating, and the sooner that you're finished with this, I'm sure the better your day is. So why don't we just dive in? As in the past, sorry, my slides to advance. As in the past, we've started with a bit of a history lesson. Then we'll move into defining the challenge, information needed to zero in on spends, impression share, the actual ad spend dollars. We're going to get to all those things, and of course, we can't forget quality score. We'll touch on that at the end briefly. All right, diving in. Most dealers and most traditional ad agencies, speak in a slightly different lingo than digital marketers. And I found that when having these conversations with dealership owners, principals, GMs, etc., sometimes being able to put it in their languages is beneficial. So what we're going to cover here, we're going to do this combination and a translation of frequency and reach. With the basic idea that it's the same as it's always been in advertising and marketing, yet for some reason, probably because of all the years of prior success, dealers understand reach and frequency and traditional metrics and understand, that's what built their businesses. So we're going to use that as a guidepost here, because some dealers find it mystifying. How are these digital budgets calculated? How do these things, not become an unchained nuclear reaction? They had it all locked down, And then along came digital, and that's when the problem started. So we're going to make sure that we define the challenge in a way that it can be communicated to dealer principals and GMs who may not be digitally savvy in a language they understand, so they'll be more likely to potentially open up the purse strings, and allow marketing dollars to flow more readily to digital pursuits. Okay. The challenge. Well, this is Stacy. Stacy's looking for a new car. We got to do a little background work before we can get to understanding the costs of getting in front of Stacy. So, how do we get in front of her? Stacy, like every other in-market buyer, well, on average, the collective, according to Google, she will make 139 Google searches as part of her 87-day car buying cycle, which will include a total of 900 digital touch points. And of course, 71% of them all occur on a mobile device. So there's that level of activity, and sometimes in the dealership there's a tug of war between how much should be spent on radio and television, how much should be spent on digital, and how does a dealer know that he's going to get performance for it, So when we have this conversation, we've always got to frame it, in a way the dealer can understand, and that's the demand, the consumer demand, because she really is the challenge, The entire narrative revolves around the slide. She's 29 years old. She makes $62,000. She lives 8 miles from the dealership. She also happens to enjoy yoga. She's run a vehicle history report, done a trade appraisal, checked her credit, been on the OEM website, and on the websites of maybe two of your, maybe even on-brand competitors, This is happening right now. She's making decisions about her next vehicle. Now, she may listen to drive time radio, but not Stacy. Stacy is a Spotify junkie, and she may watch linear television, news at 11, but in fact, she watches only Netflix, So we got to get in front of these people. We've got to build a compelling case to the dealer to open up the purse strings and let the dollars flow. Now, Okay, I'm speaking to you today about digital advertising, not a cheerleader for digital, a cheerleader for sales and market share and lowering costs. Right? Even the Google Dealer Guidebook advises that the dealership should be maybe 65 to 75% digital, with the balance going to traditional. So it's not about taking over the world. It's about having the right ratios in your market. So we've got to go after Stacy. She has proven right through these actions, the data, the crumbs she's left behind, that she is the perfect buyer for you. The only problem is that she hasn't been to your site, she isn't engaging with you, and she may not even know you exist. And this can actually be driven by an over-reliance on traditional advertising. All that reach, a signal that booms for 100 miles away from the TV station, and all that frequency, right? Umpteen million commercials that dealership's going to run gets her interested in, for example, Ford. So what's the first thing she does? She goes to the web. She starts making those 139 Google searches. And if the store's not there to back it up, that great traditional footprint, sometimes there's a bit of a characteristic that they're a little light on the digital side. And what happens now, the dealership with all that big ad spend is feeding the enemy. Right? Creating intent, harnessing some of that intent, getting demand going, and also allowing the competitor stores to take advantage of it. And we can't have that, right? Because we don't need her buying from a competitor. We don't need her showing up as a statistic on a pump-in report. Yikes, right? And we certainly don't need her becoming a brand advocate for that competitor store. Hey, got my new Toyota at, right? Yikes. None of that. Now, what we found over the last 9 years is when you get the impression share and you get conversion, all those other elements right, but at the front end of this thing is impression share, right? Getting in front of the right people at the right time, right? Just being present in, for as many of those 139 Google searches as makes sense, well, you will succeed. So, it doesn't have to be this way anymore, that we're necessarily leaving deals on the table. And we've got to bring it to the dealer's attention in a way that he can understand and say, I get it now, I see it, I will sign that request. Let's make sure we're covering all the bases in digital. So we have to captivate her at every moment. Now, when I say moment here, it's in the context of the Google moments. So a quick run through top to bottom of the moments, because that too is going to frame the discussion around what should be spent. Google moments, right? At the top of the funnel, which car is best? And it's arguable that hardly any dealers are visible at this level. This is which cars are great for people with 2 car seats and a dog, right? And the dealer will say, that's up to the manufacturer. That's not on me to create demand for Honda. That's up to Honda to create that demand. Okay, let's just park that there for a second. Let's go further down the funnel, right? We get into is it right for me moments. As she's trying to now zero in. Maybe she's not even into segment yet. She's still looking for certain features. Maybe she's a technology buyer, a safety buyer, a comfort buyer. She's going in a slightly different path. And things that matter to her, right, will be relevant to her search. Now, is every dealer out there running ads for, touting the easy to clean third row seating solutions and things with these vehicles? Of course not. But dealers who have increased their sales and share they've moved further up that funnel. We're going to come back to that because we're starting on a top down, right? And not every dealer is present in these higher levels of the Google moments. By the time we get down to sort of the middle of the funnel, can I afford it moments, most dealers will claim that they're visible there. They're dominant at that level. We got great deals, offers, specials. Okay, and we're communicating them well, right? Buy from, lease from, right? Maybe they're doing full page takeovers in mobile, right? Completely, knocking out the competition. Okay, that should be the goal, right? So maybe they are, maybe they're not. Or let's go deeper. Let's get all the way down to where should I buy? Dealer near me, right? Those types of searches. And every dealer will tell me all day long, that's me. I've got that locked. Okay, so there are some great if-then other statements, things you can bring into these ads. Now let's go all the way down to the bottom as Google defines it, the bottom of the funnel. And am I getting a good deal? It's that last minute check, rebates, deals, incentives, specials, and offers. And every single dealer says they have a lock on that. 100% at the bottom, maybe 5% at the top of that funnel. Okay. Because we're going to use this as a framework to help understand where are we winning, and when we fully saturate one of these levels in the funnel, where are you going to go? Well, probably going to go up that funnel. So when we're all the way at the bottom, where it's about deals, rebates, offers, I know I'm buying a Chevy, I'm pulling out of the driveway, am I going to go left or right? It's a last second decision as to which dealership I'm going to. Right? This is that last minute check. Okay. So now the first input in what should I spend is really, well, what moments do I want to own, right? Because every dealer will say we should, we're 175 a month and we should be 200. No matter what size of the store, they always want 20 more, right? One a day kind of thing. Okay, admirable. Now, where's that growth going to come from? So, right, if we look at the summary of the Google moments, every dealer owns the bottom, so they say. And if they truly do, that's fantastic. You can test, you can prove, that, or should know, ask your agency, your provider, whomever, the impression share of those campaigns. Right? Ford was not wrong when they lit the dealers up a couple of years ago and said, hey, fellas, you're at a collective 35% impression share. Your ads are only showing to 35% of the searches in your markets. How can you expect to win? Right? And that led to changes in Ford's program and trying to move up to 50% and move up to 50, only showing half the time. I want to win her business, so I'm only going to show her an ad every other time she looks. Yikes. Right? Would the dealer do every other paper for all those years when the newspaper mattered? Of course not. He was in the paper every weekend, every Thursday on, where he owned it. So why are we allowing this to happen in digital, where we're only visible for a certain percent of the time? Because that's what we spend. We spend $8,000. I got $8,000 to spend. That's what I'm going to spend on digital. The mother of all upside down statements. I spend $8,000, so that's what I'm going to keep spending. Let's zero in on some of these. How many Stacys are there in my market? Right. And how often does she need to see our ads? Reach and frequency. What they've all talked about, since the 1940s. Okay, so if the previous slide was the roadmap, knowing where you fit in the moments, and do you really own the bottom? And then if you do, then move up a level. If you don't, you've got to solve it. I'm going to go back a slide. You've got to solve it. If you don't have an 83% impression share at the very bottom of the funnel, fix that first. That's the first campaign or set of campaigns to resolve. And we're going to get into the mechanism of how to do it. That would be the first go-to place, right? A big troubleshooting exercise. What's going on in the store? How are we doing here? The most important one, we got to own that. Okay. So then within that bottom rung of the I suppose that's part of a funnel. At the bottom level of that funnel, how many people, how many in-market shoppers are there? How many searches does Google anticipate in the 27 zip codes where I want to sell new F-150s? We'll make it right down to a model-specific campaign. How many searches are there going to be? And then, of course, how often do I need to be in front of them is impression share. And yes, that's a key driver in cost. But if you have reach and frequency, you can build a campaign. The good news is we can figure this all out because the reality is all the numbers are known. They can be known, and dealers will say to me, "Well, I don't want to get involved too. I don't want to go too deep in my digital spend, as if the trees are going to grow all the way to the sky." Right? There is a cap, there is a ceiling, there is a number of forecasted searches on F-150 in those 27 zip codes in the month of August, and Google's really good at understanding what it's going to be. You've got historical campaigns, you know your click-through rates, you know your cost per clicks for cost per click in F-150 oriented campaigns. Okay, good. It's really simple at that point to tie these together. Now, I realize I'm probably oversimplifying, but I get this question right in my daily gig: how much do I need to spend? from every single dealer. And I'll ask, well, what do you spend today? It's just out of curiosity, because most will tell me $6 grand, some will tell me $8 grand, as if that number sort of, someone put their thumb up in the sky and said, it feels like that's a $6,000 campaign. And say, well, here's how the methodology works to deriving the cost of a campaign. And this is exactly how I have the conversation with dealers. So you want to sell F-150s in this county. Yeah, I'm in Douglas County. I want to sell F-150s. I own a big store here, and I want to dominate. I got 2 other Ford guys. I'm going to put them under. Okay, so during the month of, pick an upcoming month, August, Google anticipates for an arbitrary number there, 10,000, because I need something round so I can do simple math, 10,000 searches, F-150 purchase-related vehicle search intent purchases, new vehicles in Douglas County. Okay, so now we know the first thing. We have an expression of reach, right? How many opportunities, how many people, even though searchers make multiple searches, but bear with me, we're trying to make it so dealers can understand it. There's going to be 10,000. If you took your current cost per click, not what it could be with better quality score, or what, leave all that alone. Just say, and maybe it's $2. Okay, so now if you want to get in front of all of them, the risk factor, right? But you know you're going to get your click-through rates are going to apply. So, but let's rough this out. There are going to be 10,000 searches. They're going to cost $2 a piece. You need to be in front of 83% of them. And so there's potentially putting at risk a lot of dough. Now, are they going to click on you every time? No. Do you need to be visible? Yes. Do you need to soak into their heads? Yes. So if we're simply going after impression share as a measure of frequency, right, and the reach is the geo and how many searches are taking place in that, then we can start to rough out a spend. And the dealer will say, give me the defibrillator. My heart's fluttering. Okay, don't shoot the messenger. Right? Is it my fault there's 10,000 searches in Douglas County? No. Is it my fault they're $2? No. The good news is there are 10,000 searches forecast. They could cost $2 a piece. How many do you want to buy? Right? How many do you want to get in front of? And that's the key determinant. And dealer says, well, I will never spend that much money on anything like that. I spend $6 grand. Okay. Have you had the conversation, that sort of top-down understanding of what the true demand is from the customer side, and how many of those are being filled by the dealer side, and what's the related cost? Because it could be that this is the mechanism where they start to say, wait a second, I see it now. I have been spending solidly in traditional, and I'm not saying take away from it. But if you're not doing well on the digital side, right, you're not going to get those other sales. Where are they going to come from? They're going to come from being more visible. So the chainsaw that put this table together, but just follow me directionally. There's an expression of volume. You know what the cost would be. You know that you've got to be in front of a certain percentage. We've got to get visibility. Just have to get the visibility. Right? Back as a reminder, she is going to make 139 Google searches. And if you're only visible 50% of the time, so half of the 140, 70 of her searches will lead her to see others advertising. And we're talking about in your market, not outside, in your market. So those other 70 ads, who are they going to be? They're going to be the third parties. They're going to be the other dealers. They could be off-brand manufacturers trying to steal, Honda trying to steal intent away from Nissan or something. Or they can have an ad for your dealership who can actually sell them an F-150 in their market. It's offense and defense. If you are there, you are preventing someone else from running an ad there. So it really boils down to that. At the guts of it, you've got this challenge then of saying to the dealer, we need to either reallocate or add some dollars to our digital marketing budget. And maybe in speaking in terms along the lines of what they've always spoken about, you can get their attention. Because, and I've had this from rural dealers, I've had it from big metro stores, and the rural guys kill me when they say, well, the paper still really does well for us here. Okay, every rural market that I go to in America, and you just walk into any place and have a lunch, what do you see? Everyone has a smartphone. It's not a metro thing. It's probably even maybe more tilted toward rural. That's their only connectivity with in many cases. right? So we've got to get in front of these folks. I mean, it's almost in some ways too obvious. Now, we're not going to get into quality score at this point, because that's how you get the cost per click down. So if you want to buy more clicks for the same money, you got to get the cost per click down. So that's a separate discussion. So even just rough out using your current cost per click, whether it's an effective buy or not, is sort of secondary. All right. So in an attempt here to summarize what's going on here, I do want to go. I'm going to go back here for a second. I should have dragged a copy of the slide down. Right. This is your roadmap. The Google Dealer Guidebook, right? You can get it from Think with Google. Just Google search for it. The January release. Am I getting a deal? And if you're owning that bottom moment and you've got a strong impression share, upper 70s, low 80s, if you go above 83%, you're moving into diminishing returns. Costs go up, sales don't appreciably go up. So you don't have to crush it beyond that. But if you're in the 50s, this is your opportunity to boost that number here. If you're if you've got this one locked down, then consider building out the campaigns to own the next level up. Lock that one down, right? Move up another level and continue that process. What's interesting is at the very top, and I think I can highlight this here. Nope, it's not going to let me highlight it. Sorry, folks. At the very top of the funnel, the second sentence, I'll just move my mouse on it. As a dealer, these moments may not be your first area of focus. Guaranteed they're not. But what is Google saying? They're critical when you need to generate demand for the dealership. When the dealer says he wants to sell more cars, now these folks at the top of this funnel are 87 days out. So they're not going to materialize this weekend. But when it says we need to get more things going around here, the 87-day long view of this is, okay, let's give people information they want at the top, regardless of the fact that it may be an area where the dealer feels that the manufacturer should be answering all those questions. If you want the demand, it's there and it's going unserved. Right? So from the bottom to the top, that is effectively the roadmap. Right? Own the bottom of the funnel, move up. Own it, move up, repeat, and methodically eliminate any roadblocks preventing you from reaching impression share targets. And by own it, meaning sort of the 80% level. And you will find that the sales will follow along behind. And sometimes the dealer will say, look, you can tell me all day long, I got to spend 16 grand. I'm not going to spend it. I spent 6 grand. Okay, then let sales pull it up. Right? How about going $500 deeper next month and $500 the month after that? And in a few months' time, you'll be at the quote ridiculous number the dealer would never spend because sales took it there. Sales absolutely took it there, and that way, he or she sees the results, pull the thing in that direction, and meanwhile, you're getting the budget allocation that you need, right, to effectively deliver on your job, which is right to get more people into the store. So it's a simple challenge, right? Everybody can do the arithmetic on spending more. I found that the deeper issue is convincing the dealer principal or whoever's controlling the purse strings as to why they should do this. So hopefully there have been takeaways in this deck this afternoon, which will help you get to that point. So as a little signal to Megan, because I'm just before the 30-minute mark here, that concludes the regularly scheduled portion of this discussion. There may be time here for Q&A. When I hear Megan come back in, I guess she will guide us.
Thanks, Rob. Everyone, we're now in the Q&A portion of the webinar, so please add any questions you may have to that questions tab to your lower right. First question we have, Rob, do you have any guidance on figuring out budgets?
It's such a tip. I speak with dealers across the country, so I get the question. So, well, come on, you must have somebody in my kind of market or my size store. Give me a feel for it. And while that average dealer may be spending $8,000 a month, average never happens. So I always get get pushed by GMs in these conversations saying, come on, if you can't give me a number, I'm not gonna give you my business. And they said, well, I can't give you that number. We can derive it together, right? But the number is the number. I would start by understanding, the searches for whatever's driving the campaign, and obviously multiply that by average cost per click. Understand the impression share that you're targeting, and then you have at least a rough direction as to what the cost could be or should be. It varies so greatly that even Honda stores, right, from one market to another, it can be so different that I'd shoot myself in the foot by trying to ever guess or just hypothesize about it. So you've got most of this data available to you. It's really a matter of helping the dealer understand that sort of the simple inputs. I know it didn't really answer the question. But I don't have a better answer.
Thanks, Rob. How do you calculate ROI?
Well, you can, of course, almost drive yourself crazy on attribution. And it is, of course, the holy grail. And at some point, attribution has to come into any ROI discussion. If things are being held constant, you're not making dramatic other changes in your marketing efforts. And the local economy didn't fundamentally change. A competitor didn't leave or come into the market, right? If things are fairly set and stable, we would always choose to measure it by sales and market share. And we would choose to measure market share really as regional sales performance, because if all things are held equal and your sales are increasing, or in a falling market, if yours are holding flat, if your share is strong and strengthening, and you're above dealers that have traditionally beat you, even though they're not exactly comparable, none of it's perfect, that moving up, the upward mobility in the regional rankings is usually a pretty good factor, right? The dealer goes to the Chevy make meeting and rubs elbows with his competitors, and they all know, hey, that Smith Chevrolet, something changed there. These guys, started climbing the sales charts. It all boils down to that. We're not trying to get, well, all these things happen along the way, traffic and all the other measures, but in the end, if it's not selling more cars, why are we doing it? But I will just one caveat. When you're looking at people at the top of that funnel, you're not going to see them for 87 days. This isn't those campaigns won't be turn them on today and solve sales problems next weekend, right? The bottom funnel ones are the ones that you're going to see show up this weekend. Good question, though. Thanks, Megan.
What is a good impression share for new and a good impression share for used?
Used is a little tricky. If you're running dynamic search ad campaigns, then I think unfortunately, this is going to be an opinion. Then I think you have a fairly good measure of search intent versus how many times your ads were showing, right? Because now you're matching on vehicle, as if on the new side when someone's looking for a 2018 Audi Q5 and they see an ad, right? That's you can link those up. Used car searches and are going to be somewhat obviously affected by your involvement with the third parties and whether you're engaged with them or not. I may have to come back with a better answer to that one question. On the new car side, it's fairly straightforward. If you're in the 60s, you're in the game. If you're in the 70s, you're, of course, all things equal, good conversion on it. So, then you're really in the fight. And if you're in the low 80s, you're probably the dominant player in your market.
How do you plan advertising budget for Facebook or YouTube?
There's some overarching ratios which don't take into account sort of local behavior. It's generally, if you built your your digital campaigns around strong impression shares, 70s, upper 70s, something like that. Whatever that number turns out to be. So the end answer is, voila, it's a $10,000 monthly digital spend. The starting point is probably on the low end 8%, on the high end 13 or 14% of that number. So call it $800 to $1,400 should be spent on Facebook ads, particularly, and that same amount earmarked for YouTube. They're generally running 8 to 14% of spend in some higher performing stores that I've seen. I'm sure there are local market anomalies on that, but maybe that's a starting point if someone wasn't sure where they should sort of land just in the beginning.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today's webinar. Thank you again to Rob and C4 Analytics for some great content today. To view this webinar on demand and future digital dealer webinars, visit digital.com/webinar. Thank you and have a great day.